All right. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We are following up on a series about what makes a successful real estate agent. Today, we're going to chat about what the perfect the perfect real estate business brings to the table in the way of helping to evolve your career. Stated in prior podcasts, in large part with Dr. Hall, talking about consulting, mentoring, and coaching. We're going to chat about a lot of things such as leadership development, accountability, training, and then at the tail end of that conversation, we're going to chat about a special offer that we have for you to potentially take advantage of these attributes of the perfect real estate business. We're going to chat, as we always do, with Dr. Roger Hall. He's a business psychologist and executive coach, a multi-time author, and a public speaker. And today, we're going to chat about the application of all the things that are in his books, in his courses, in our conversations. So kind of that neuro nerd side of things, which I'm always super excited about. How you doing today, Dr. Hall?
I am quite well. Thanks for having me again, Jared. It's great to work with you.
Yeah, same. I'm glad that we can finally kind of get together and kind of distill all the things that we've been looking to bring to the perfect real estate business in the way of helping people level up. Where it is that they're at, what stage, whatever phase that they're in their real estate business, and kind of be that mindset coach, that foundational, fundamental side of what's really going to truly make a big difference in their careers. So, super exciting.
I love the topic. That's what I'm all about.
Awesome. Well, let's do a couple of real quick housekeeping things here, real quick. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead at My Home Connection, also known as MHC Realty. And our sponsor for today is the perfect real estate business, where we're reinventing real estate. How is it that you develop your real estate career? Again, in large part with the coaching, the mentoring, the training, but we've also got a lot of fundamental aspects of real estate that we're still bringing to the table with lead generation, profit sharing, revenue sharing options, and things along those lines. We'd love an opportunity to chat with you about what that looks like and how we can help out. But with that, we'll bring Dr. Hall in and just briefly chat about kind of the lack of understanding of the nuances and the differences between a mentor, a coach, a consultant, a trainer. Um,
Mhm.
can you just kind of give us maybe a 30, 60-second idea in your mind of how they start to differentiate themselves?
Yeah, Jared, I'm so glad that you brought this topic up because the words are very often used as synonyms. People go, so you're a coach, so you're a consultant, so you're and and they they don't really differentiate that each kind of has a different lane. And in my thinking, and I think we're going to show the chart that you created, which I think is excellent. But in my thinking, yeah, here we there it is. But in my thinking, a mentor is someone probably in your industry, older and more experienced than you, who decides to take a long term relationship with you to help guide you through many seasons of your career. And it is a special relationship that is a long term relationship. And can I get nerdy about mentor, that the
Absolutely.
word mentor? So, so the word mentor is actually the name of a character in Homer's The Odyssey. And the protagonist in the Odyssey is Odysseus, and he leaves his home to go off to fight the Trojan War. And once the war is over, he's on his way back. The gods get mad at him and they send him off course, and he spends a decade trying to get from essentially from North Africa back to Greece. Not really Greece, but around there.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's a little like Gilligan's Island, right? It's a two-day voyage, and it takes him 10 years. So he's got this family. His wife is Penelope. His son is Telemachus, and he's got a servant named Mentor. And in that time, the goddess Athena decides that she wants to protect Telemachus, Odysseus's son. So she inhabits the body of his servant, who's actually a pig herd. That's the guy's job, is to herd pigs.
Okay.
So Mentor gets embodied by the goddess Athena, who then watches over and cares for the development of Telemachus for a decade.
Okay.
And that's where we get the term mentor. So it historically has been long-term. It has been someone who has a special relationship with someone who's younger and helping them develop. So that's mentor. The second is consultant. And a consultant is usually a hired gun who has some expertise in your industry, but not necessarily a ton, but may have expertise that you want. And they tend to give you advice. So you hire them to give you advice. An emerging area that, the word didn't exist outside of athletics before the 1990s, with this idea of a coach. Now it's ubiquitous for anybody who wants to hang out a shingle as an expert. Mm-hmm. And the coaching business, the life coach, the executive coach, the business coach, the whatever, the coaching federations, the credentialing bodies for that have really defined their lane, that coaching is not directive. It is helping a person find the answers on their own. And I want to talk to you about the tension between consultant and coach. And the last is trainer. The trainer is a teacher, someone who has knowledge and will teach you individually or will teach many people. So you've got mentor, long-term relationship, trusted person who's in much of your life, a consultant, outside expert who you hire in, who has great insight, you hope wisdom, who will sometimes give you specific advice, a coach who may not have specific knowledge of your area, but their job is to help you discover the answers on your own. And then a trainer who is essentially a teacher. Sometimes it's formal, sometimes it's not. One of the things we talked about, Jerod, before we started filming, was that people view them synonymously. Well, that's probably because individuals move from role to role depending on what the problem is or what the person does. Mm-hmm. So if I can use myself as an example, my discipline is consulting psychology. I was trained in a discipline called counseling psychology. At one point in my career, I hired a person to help me redevelop into this new area. But counseling used to be what we're calling coaching today. Mm. And so I've been trained in both of those. And so in my training, I was encouraged to help people find the answers on their own. And I got into so much trouble in my training because at some point I would say, well, have you ever thought about X? Maybe you should try this. And because they watched us like hawks, all my supervisors, they're watching me on videotape do this and they're pulling their hair out. And they said, don't you think it would have been a more powerful experience for your client if you had helped her to discover it on her own? And I said, I've been working with her, for 6 weeks and she didn't get it. And I just told her, she can try it now. And then next week when we meet, maybe it'll be better and we can move on to a different issue. Yeah. And they would circle back and say, well, I think it would have been more powerful the other way. And I said, if she ever got to it, but she needed like a little coaxing.
Yeah.
So in my role, I can move from consultant to coach to trainer depending on the day. And frankly, I'm in many of those roles in one appointment.
Yeah. Yeah. By necessity, right? It's because people need different things at different times.
They need different things at different times. And mentoring, I do mentoring, but typically the mentoring I do is within my discipline for people who are younger in my discipline. And I work with them to help them come along. And so that they don't make the same mistakes in my discipline that I've made. I mean, they're free to make the same mistakes again if they want, but I try to help them not make the same mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see that ideally you would want the person to come to the realization themselves, because I could see the profound nature of that process. But, sometimes, if we're not doing what you teach us to work on, and that's, reflection, quiet meditation,
Yeah,
that we don't slow down enough to do that. And therefore,
right.
if you're not going to get there, then somebody's just got to say, "Hey, look, you're missing the boat. You need to focus here."
Yes. One of my little aphorisms that I learned and I've stolen came from IT. And I love this statement. Before you know, it's simply awful. After you know, it's awfully simple. So, when you're working with your computer, some IT professional can go, well, you hit these three keys at the same time and then hit this other button and it'll reset your computer and this will make the bad thing go away.
Yeah.
Well, not in a million years would I know which three buttons and how long to hold them for. So
Right.
a coach would go, maybe if you were to experiment, maybe you could come to this conclusion. Why don't you just tell me?
Yeah.
And so part of the role of a consultant is to tell people before you know it's simply awful, after you know it's awfully simple. If there are easy ways to help a person gain traction,
Yeah.
you really help them by giving advice. And yeah, there are some things that are great to discover on your own, and great coaches can do that, provided that the person is making some forward progress. Otherwise, you just lose hope. You feel like you're casting around for direction, and the coach is like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and you're like, yeah, you're hearing what I'm saying, but like, throw me a bone here.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of a mentor, because I've taken the opportunity where somebody wasn't getting the breakthrough that I was hoping they'd get because of, letting them figure it out. But as a mentor, sharing some testimony of something that
Yeah.
was similar happened to you, you didn't really give them all the answers, but you gave them a scenario of what you went through, right? That's what a mentor does. It's somebody that's,
Yes.
has experience in what you're trying to do, been there, done that. So to share a little bit of testimony, they're like, oh, okay. Because you've already seen the outcome as their mentor, right? You've already hashed
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
And now you're just giving them.
This has been learned 100 times. You don't need to relearn it on your own. Here's how to do it.
Right.
And I love you enough to tell you, because if it's standing on the shoulders of giants. If your mentor is a giant and you get all of their insight downloaded quick when you're young,
Yeah.
how much more can you achieve when you level up on that? I would encourage any young person to be actively on the lookout for someone who could be a mentor to them, because in looking at the lives of successful people, most of them have had a mentor, someone who's got their back, who's showing them the ropes in their discipline, and spends a long time with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I that we really differentiate in what we're trying to do is a personalized approach to all this versus the coaching in a box, the consulting in a box. Do these things. walk this treadmill, end up with this result type stuff. But then you're doing something that somebody else grew to love, maybe, or made money at, or was successful at, that may or may not fit in line with what you're ultimately, excited to do, passionate about, wired to excel at, versus what we're putting together here that the offer we'll make at the end of this is to help bring all this together. So a little bit of a spoiler alert there, but what do you need at this point for what reason?
Yeah, I guess I would say those programs like Coach in a Box and all those other things. I would say that those things exist in the world of training, and that's valuable. Books are a type of training, and I remember a friend of mine, a colleague, said, and he was a big golf nut, and he said, every bad golfer reads books on how to improve their golf.
I love that.
And he says, and every great golfer reads books about how to get better at golf. Do you know what the difference is?
The one actually goes out and golfs.
Well, usually the great golfers hire coaches and consultants.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Everyone else just wants to stop at training.
I see.
And
Yeah.
training is good. It's good, but for really excellent performance in whatever your endeavor, you really got to find a mentor, a consultant, a coach to take you and help you overcome that. One of the things you've got on coaching is accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say, and I don't golf, but let's say I read a book on golf and I go, wow, I got it. But I don't actually have somebody who's, my drill sergeant to go, okay, have you, let's say we're working on my putting game. Well, have you gone out and have you putted for 3 hours? No. Okay, go do that.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make me better.
Yeah. Well, I love the golfing analogy a lot. Obviously the swing is something that's been dissected and, visited, I don't know, millions of times. But if you're reading a book and you're training or you're watching videos, you have a personal swing, right? Your height, your clubs, your I don't know. I'm not a golfer, so obviously I'm going to butcher some of the terminology, but my swing is going to be different than your swing. So we can both read books on swings all day long, but unless a coach or a consultant or mentor says, "Hey, Jerod, you're 6+ foot tall and you tend to do this. Oh, I can tell you used to play baseball because once you get comfortable, you swing it like a bat instead of a club."
Yeah.
You don't know. So all that reading and video watching only gets you so far until it becomes personal. And that's when I really started. I mean, the little bit I do know of golf, it was personally directed towards me because I'd wonder why it is 3 or 4 holes later, my ball went up in all kinds of different directions until, my coach said, and he's a friend of mine, but he's obviously a lot better than I was. He said, you're swinging like a bat again. You're trying for a home run. You're not trying for the hole. I'm like, oh, so I'd correct that. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and he's your golf coach, your golf trainer, whatever. But he's teaching you. He's holding you accountable to practice. He in that sense, he's a consultant as well because he's giving you advice. So in 1 or 2 sentences in one event, he's spanning all these different identities, and it doesn't really matter what he calls himself, but it's important for people to know when they want to personally develop, to know, okay, here's what I'm really looking for.
Yeah.
In the consulting game, there are lots of people who are content experts in one area. I know, I'm the accrual accounting consultant. I know how in accrual accounting, I'm talking out of my head at this point. I know this area. Well, that's not a person you're going to hire as your personal development coach because they're like, I don't know how to do that. I just know how to do this thing.
Yeah.
And you might want to hire a technical consultant to help you with some specific piece. And that's good. I mean, that's what an accountant is a technical consultant. But you're probably not going to go to your accountant for insight into your own personal development.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Something popped into my head, and I hope it'll be a good extension of this analogy that we've been talking about. But he had been trying to talk me into golf for a while, and I was into, at that time, more aggressive sports, and I thought it was boring and just, I like volleyball and just stuff that,
Yeah, not your jam.
well, yeah. And one day he shows up with a golf bag with clubs in it. He says, I don't know, happy birthday, I think. Anyway, here's your gift. And I'm like, oh, wow, he got me clubs. And not only he got me clubs, but he had made them for me.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
that was his hobby. He made clubs. And I said, how'd you make clubs for me? And he goes, oh, I just kind of, behind your back, took your measurements and, just, kind of did stuff. And so now I felt really obligated to go out golf, right? This guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, you completely got to justify the gift. Wow.
Yeah, but
what an incredible gift.
it was amazing. But what I'm hoping that this will do is extend the analogy a little bit more, that there was tools that he gave me that were unique to me.
Yes.
My height, my arm length, blah, blah, blah. Which meant the world to me because, he put a lot of thought into it. And it really, I didn't have a game really per se, but I could tell these were tools that were going to make me much better than just kind of your standard rental stuff. If nothing else, they were consistent, right? Because if you rent clubs or whatever, you're going to get whatever you're going to get. And, they're just going to...
Yeah, and you don't know if somebody, hammered it against a tree last Sunday,
Right. So anyway, I think, what I'm trying to share is that's what we're really trying to do here, is get you the right tools, personalize them to you so that you're more successful in your efforts and your endeavors.
It's a great analogy, Jerod, because, training, if it's one to many, it can't be, it's got to be one size fits all. And very often people get frustrated with training, with education, because they go, well, that doesn't solve my specific problem. Well, it's not supposed to solve your specific problem.
Right.
If all we did was teach to solve your problem, the other people in the class or the other people who are involved, they get nothing.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to all the other people who are there for training. So it's when people come to me and they want training, I don't give specific tactics because I'm teaching the overarching system and really the magic is in the specific customized tactics for the situation, much like your friend gave you customized golf clubs.
Yeah.
I just can't get over that gift, Jerod.
I was shocked. Yeah. And, it was also awesome because once I, again, I felt obligated to go, but once I went, I had a great time. I'm like, wow, this, I shouldn't have, underestimated the game, because there is a lot about it that teaches consistency. There isn't many games that teaches you that you need consistency, follow through. Follow through is talked about in a lot of sports, bowling and baseball swing, and and that's all important. But man, if you're not a good golfer until you're consistent, right? I could have a good game and feel on cloud nine, but I go out the next day and I suck. It's like, well, as an average, I suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a great friend to introduce you that way to a sport that can provide you a lot of enjoyment for many years.
Yeah.
And so in our situation, it really does make a difference. Training is good, but you only get so far with rented clubs.
Yeah.
And once it's customized, then you get a lot further. You get a lot more enjoyment from it.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta have the training, right? Because training, begets knowledge that you can hopefully execute on, that begets competency. Competency builds confidence, right? As you apply, hopefully, using the words in the right sequence and correctly, that, really what we're trying to do is put you in a position of being a consultant for your clients. Yes, we're a real estate agent, but we're also looking to solve very specific needs and wants for our clients. And all of that needs to happen, right? If you train on, what the different nuances of different homes, right? A mid-century home has these characteristics and these things to consider versus new construction has these considerations. And one may or may not be a good fit for that client, and vice versa. But we got to figure all that out. So same thing applies there. But really, what we want to do today is to help get our head around why you would embrace, lean into, take advantage of one, I guess, category or type of support or service over another.
Yeah, I think I would view it as a mentor is a person, and you can define it differently, Jerod, but someone in your industry. So like in your industry, Jerod, I don't think I could be a mentor. You could be a mentor because you have expertise in the industry, and if it's the right person, you could take that person under your wing and help them grow and develop, especially in the field of real estate. I don't have that knowledge base, so I don't think I would be a good choice for that. I think you and I can both be consultants. I have a knowledge base that is applicable to that specific field. You absolutely have a knowledge base that's applicable to that field, and we can give advice on general principles and specific tactics for making improvement. I think both of us can be, for real estate, be coaches in terms of helping people maintain accountability and regularity, and helping people, me in particular, and I think you can as well, help people in that personal growth piece, the leadership growth piece. And then both of us can do training, that each of us has specific knowledge, different knowledge, but that can apply to people who want to excel in this area. Yeah. And so I think each person has to think, okay, what am I really looking for? Do I need specific insight? Do I need specific tactics? Do I need general stuff, or do I need accountability? It really depends on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And personally, I hire coaches, I hire consultants, I get training, and in different phases in my life, I've had mentors. Mm-hmm. And so you grow in and out of each of those throughout your career span. But anyone who doesn't take correction, who doesn't seek insight from others, if there's a term called an autodidact. It's like, I'm self-taught. Well, that takes you so far.
Yeah.
If you're self-taught, there are holes in your knowledge that you can't get unless you get them from somebody else.
Yeah.
And so as much respect as I have for autodidacts, people who teach themselves, everybody who's really exceptional gets help.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point you need to see your blind spots. Sorry, I reached
Mm-hmm.
back in my head because you've talked about your blind spots.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I got a visible blind spot.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, the one thing that came to my mind was to help mentor an agent. I'd be honored to help people do that, but you've coached and trained me to understand what it is to be a good resident leader. Yeah. So for me, to help somebody walk through the development of their real estate business and understand that I need to kind of set aside, my emotions, my thoughts, and really kind of understand where they're at, what they're going through, have empathy for their position, anyway, I'm just sharing that kind of brings everything full circle, right? You're helping me so I can help them, and, in different capacities, but, yeah, anyway.
And we all, if we desire to be exceptional in our chosen profession or in life in general, we're always looking for people to help us improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I want to say something about the word mentor. I've met many women who, because mentor was named after a man, wanted a different name. But if you know the story, the real person doing the mentoring was the goddess Athena,
Female.
and and yeah, a woman. So I think that word, if you really look at it closely, it really does apply both to women and men, and everybody needs that mentoring.
Well, I brought up the blind spot because you just, as much as you'd like to think you can figure it out and, you can get enough training in today's era, you can watch enough videos or whatever it might be. Um, but you just can't, there's just some things you can't see. You can't, about yourself, you can't see, you can't know. And you start pulling this from other people that know you or see you, or even that they don't. You just go off and learn from somebody else because they've got a ton more experience or different experience in different
Yeah.
areas. Why wouldn't you want to, pull from that?
Well, I meet people. I have the good fortune of meeting people, most of whom want to, but there are a subset of people who are proud people who believe they know enough themselves and they don't need anybody else to tell them. And when I meet those people, I just tell them, okay, there's nothing, there's not much I can teach you. Let's go live our separate lives in peace.
Yeah.
And they go their way and I go mine. And um, I don't have any desire to tell somebody who doesn't want my insight anything. I mean, I don't walk to people on the street and say, hey, I'm a psychologist and I observed this thing about you. They don't care. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just a crank at that point. It's
Yeah.
only when the consultant or the coach or the mentor gets invited in does it really make a difference. And if people are unteachable, leave them to their own devices.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And as folks are, looking at this chart here and potentially going to take us up on our offer is, there are the people that have a why. They see the benefit of getting professional help, advice, successful input from successful people or what have you. And they're really in that humble state of saying, I know little to nothing. Even if you know something, the preferred position would be always that position of able to learn more. Like that would be ideal. And then you just have some people that bump into this stuff and kind of feel like they should do it, or they're at a stage where, hey, I should probably invest in that. But by all rights, they're kind of in the mentality of this is just something I have to do, don't really need to do, but you're kind of doing it. And then you have the people you were talking about, just flat out, I know better, I don't need any help. So there's kind of three levels, of which I would say the first is the one that's going to get the most benefit.
Yeah, if I can use an analogy, and I love that those three distinctions. There are people who are really hungry for a meal, okay, and they go in and they fill their plate and they eat till they're full, and then there are people who just want to sample.
Yeah.
And they're the dilettantes. They want a little sample here and a little sample there, but they're not really hungry. And they'll come sample, but they don't really get satisfied. And then there are people who aren't hungry at all, and they'll just go, I don't want your, I don't need your stinking food.
Right.
And so I really look for the people who are really hungry.
Yeah.
And those are the people I like to work with.
Yeah, and those are the ones I've personally seen that they just flourish. They just, once they open their mind to that humble position, that humble state, and want to learn, you just really see them take off.
Yeah.
Whether it's they just become a better person, or their real estate career really blossoms, or their relationships start to shift and change, or whatever it is. Those are the fun ones. The ones that are actually kind of lukewarm about it, they actually become kind of frustrating. It's like, oh man, if you just lean in. And of course, the other ones.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're dilettantes. They're just tasting. I mean, they're the people who are at Costco just having a little sample on Saturday morning, but
Yeah.
they're really not there for the meal.
It's a freebie.
It's a freebie, yeah.
Yeah.
And those people are really frustrating because in their own minds they think, oh yeah, I'm sophisticated. I'm up with all the latest ideas, but they're really not humble enough to say, teach me because I want to know. And it's a blast. I mean, it is a blast to watch people take off when they're really hungry. And I'd say there's probably two different ways that people come to it. There's the proactive and the reactive. The proactive are people who have a history of hiring consultants or coaches in different areas, and they know, okay, I've gotten better. And what I have found is that people with a history in athletics typically are more open to this. The smart kid in school never had to get much training. They always got A's on everything and they didn't work very hard.
Yeah.
But when you're in athletics, you're always being critiqued. You're always being improved. You're always being taught. And those people I find tend to be very, and you'll see it also in music and in theater, people who are in those other performance disciplines in school, you'll see that they've gotten that kind of feedback. And so they're always working to improve. So that person, typically their whole life has been glomming on to the more information. So that's the proactive person. The second is the reactive person. They've gotten themselves into such a pickle. They've made a bunch of bad decisions that life has smacked them in the head and they go, I need some help.
Yeah.
And, I'll take either.
Yeah.
Because
they're in the
sometimes
same state, right?
they're in that hungry state. And sometimes the person who's made kind of a mess of things is at that point humble enough. And sometimes that's enough for them to learn, okay, this worked out really well. I need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
My life is better because of this.
Yeah.
So people who are in the midst of adversity, and then people who are used to being trained and taught and hunger for it.
Yeah. Well, and what I love that I hope the audience or the listeners can appreciate is this is application for everything in your life. What we talk about here, your mindset coaching, metacognition, locus of control, all the big, profound, lessons that you can learn on this are applicable to all aspects of your life, your financial life, your spiritual life, your social life, your career. So once you learn these things and these skills, you're going to elevate everything that you do. Not just, hey, I've got a better real estate business. Hey, my close, intimate relationships are better. Hey, my friendships are better. Hey, whatever. You can't help but improve on all of them.
Yes. And very often people ask me, so are you like a life coach or are you like a business coach? And, you're the same person in both places. I typically solve problems in people's workplaces, but the skills transcend. And sometimes the problems transcend. But one of the highest compliments that I receive is, you helped me with this problem in my business, but what I really noticed is my marriage is better, my relationship with my kids are better. What a great compliment is that?
Yeah.
That you've improved the home life of somebody by helping them in their workplace.
Yeah. Well, and that is a really good point. We do need our audience to know that this is a holistic view. Yeah. We're going to look at, kind of, and, we don't want people to feel like we're, overstepping our bounds or whatever, but being an integrated being, if your work life sucks, your home life sucks, and vice versa. So we know that's the case. So we can't help but kind of identify, these other areas of your life. You can't have a terrible exercise life or a terrible nutrition life, because once you get sick, like nothing else matters. You're sick. So yeah. Let's talk about that. So, don't be concerned that we're talking about other areas that might seem a little uncomfortable because it's there by design, because we want you to level up in all aspects of who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have background in training in those other areas. So, I feel pretty comfortable talking about those areas. But my focus really is on human performance and human performance in the workplace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's a great kind of place to wrap it up here. We're 40 minutes in and we covered a lot of ground. And we can wrap it up. Two things. One is we'd like to talk about the special offer a little bit, and then get everybody some visibility as to how they get to your resources and contact you. But the special offer we want to make is this exploration call, this exploratory effort, kind of that half an hour. How can we help you? Where are you at? We're trying not to use the assessment thing, but really it's exploring how we can come along and help you. Obviously, initially in
And
your real estate business.
are we a good fit?
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that I've learned in my experience is that there are many qualified people who are just not a good fit for each other, and success comes from making that good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
we're going to
the
talk
part of the
about the things.
exploratory call is to see, are we a good match?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not ready, we don't want to spend, weeks, months, potentially years with somebody that really isn't going to truly benefit from what
Right.
we have to offer, because there are people that are at a point that are ready, that do need anyway. So that kind of that exploration. Yeah. I won't beat a dead
Yep.
horse, but, yeah, let's make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with me is on my website, drrogerhall.com. And on there, there's a way for you to contact me. You also have the ability on that website to find out more about my books, which are kind of training, online courses, which are training, and find out more about my coaching consulting business.
And then you have a kind of a quiz on your website as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any anxiety, I have a little quiz that'll help you figure out how you typically respond to anxiety, and it's a way for you to gain those first steps on understanding how you typically approach fear-inducing situations.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, as always, Dr. Hall, we really appreciate you jumping on, sharing kind of the differences of what we bring to the table. When we say reinventing real estate, these are things that I don't see, at least to this depth, in other coaching programs, mentoring programs, what have you. So if we can have that exploratory call and see how we can help you, we'd be honored to do it. So with that, I wish everybody a blessed one. Thanks.
Thank you.